Hello, happy Friday to everyone. Welcome to the Foxhole Feed, episode 31. And man, we have a megalithic show today. Lots of huge announcements. Most times I'm always telling you guys lots of huge announcements, and you're just like, some Japanese games here, some industry dudes talking shit there, some rumor stuff here. But this is indeed a megaton one. This is a megaton one that is like, this is one of those days that lives in infamy type deals. So yeah, we got some megaton news ready for you guys today. And I mean that for real when you guys hear like later segments. Some crazy shit happened this past week in gaming. Before we get into any of that, we're gonna jump in, talk about some community news, talk about what's popping off in the streets. So Foxhole Feed, popping off the Foxhole channel in terms of our no commentary gameplay stuff. Loaded up some Fallout. I got the last couple quests of Fallout being loaded up right now. Craig, my good buddy, Kid Koopa, he's going out there getting some good Street Fighter beta footages in. He's doing pretty good, I think. We got some Street Fighter footage in. Got ending of Metal Gear Solid 4 wrapping up. Metal Gear Solid 5 gameplay being loaded. And yeah, we got a lot of junk being loaded right now. Lots of games that we're busy playing in this, very busy holiday weekend. So yeah, let's go into some news. In what might be easily one of the biggest news stories this year. If you think Final Fantasy VII is a big one, I personally don't think Final Fantasy VII is not huge. I mean, it's a big deal, but that's more of like an inevitability. I think we all knew that inevitably Final Fantasy VII was going to be announced. Considering Square's track record for either remastering or remaking some of their titles, I think it was an inevitability. Shenmue 3, this kind of goes in that ballpark of pretty big stuff, considering it could have never happened. So I might put this next news story in that ballpark of that excitement. So Hideo Kojima, now being released from his contract, released from the grips, from the talons of Konami, is now going to be apparently working for Sony. So he opened his own independent studio. Funny, it's called Kojima Productions, like the last one. And yeah, he's opened his own independent studio. His next project is going to be published by Sony. And let me repeat one more time, it is independent. So he owns his own studio. The next game he's going to be working on, he states, is going to be very edgy. Who knows what the fuck that means? I'm going to go over the details of what we know for a matter of fact so far. We know that he owns his studio outright. He's working independently. Yuji, art director, famous art director, character director for Metal Gear Solid, is going with him. The art director of Metal Gear Solid series is actually the one that does his logo, which is like, see guys, I'll show in the corner in a second here. And yeah, so Sony's going to be publishing it. It's going to be coming out on the PlayStation 4. It is going to be coming out on PC. So we don't know much details regarding the deal that went down, other than, he states many people approached him, many companies. My assumption could be the big Japanese people, Square, Sega, possibly Capcom, but I don't even think they got money for that type of shit. And I believe EA or Ubisoft would have had that, throws floating some money that man's way. I would only assume so. And he states that, he had a relationship with Sony, and he says that, he had a whole 10-year, thing with them, and he starts talking about like his 30 years in gaming, that he's not going to stop directing. And he made a comment saying that he's not going to stop or working in games in general until he dies. So he's made a big deal about that. So some of the details regarding this game, outside of the deal anyway, is that it's going to be a mech-based game. So Zone of Enders could possibly be one of the games. It could be a spiritual successor to Zone of Enders. Just for a little tidbit to us, you guys, Zone of Enders 3 was actually canceled by Konami. So yeah, it could be Zone of Enders. Just talking about industry news for a sec. In regards to a Japanese developer, or any developer really, leaving a studio, we've seen that sometimes ideas might branch off into, other things. We've seen IntelliPlay or Intel Play go and leave elsewhere to work on their version of, Wasteland. And we've seen the people who left that go on to do Fallout stuff or Wasteland stuff. It was one of the other ways. So we've seen what's happening right now with Keiji Inafune, with him leaving Capcom and then going over to make Mighty 9, going over to make Red Ash. And we've seen with Shinji Mikami making Evil Within or Vanquish and Shadow of the Damned. So it's not new for a creator, or Hideki Kamiya when he made Bayonetta. So, I mean, it's not new to have a creator leave a publisher and then go on to make a series that is similar or a spiritual successor to it. In my personal opinion, Bayonetta is better than any other Devil May Cry game produced after 3, and I believe Evil Within is way better than RE4, 5, and 6. So it's like, I feel that if anyone's worried regarding what this game might be and regarding whether or not it would ever get a Zone of Enders, consider that it doesn't really matter what the game's called. You're going to get that concept by the people who want to make that concept. The name doesn't really mean shit, and I don't think it matters too much to them. So I'm expecting it to be like Zone of Enders, very anime, very different story. Of course, we're not going to get all those funny, like, I guess, throwbacks to Gradius and like that they've had through the series. We're probably not going to get anything like that, but I don't think it matters. In other news regarding this entire deal and acquisition, Konami, it seems like they're doing this shit on purpose, but they're firing back and they're stating that they're hiring staff for a new Metal Gear Solid game. Now, they're stating this on the very day that Kojima is, announcing his, PlayStation, published game that's going to be coming out. And it sounds like they might be just doing this just because. Now, they said it's going to be wide, open variety. They go on to state that they're looking for people who are passionate about game design. Who knows? Now, Konami has said several things. They've said that, they're not doing AAA console games any longer, and they've made a really big deal about them seeking mobile, but they also made a deal, days after to recant that and say they very much are still interested in AAA games. I don't know if I believe that. I think that's sort of bullshit, because it's like you can't say, well, you're spending all this money on mobile and then, half of your developers are leaving, like Igarashi, the creator of Castlevania, left them. So it's like, this could be like what's happening with Capcom, with Capcom outsourcing some of those games to other people. Those games are the shadows of their former selves. They don't hold a candle to the original creators. So to my Metal Gear Solid fans, to my Zone of Enders fans, do not worry. Don't worry about the name. Doesn't fucking matter. You could call it Metal Gear Solid, but I think we all sort of know that just like RE4 was the last Shinji Mikami Resident Evil, let's be real. This is the last big Metal Gear title that's coming out. Anything else that releases is just merely going to be the name, and I don't really think that matters as much as the design, the creation. None of those things matter. IPs can't really sell games. I mean, you got to be a real fucking game first, and so no worries. Big deal. Megalithic. Another thing I'd like to leave out regarding this whole deal with PlayStation is that it's also coming to PC, and Sony's also publishing, but they generally don't publish games, or Sony Computer Entertainment doesn't generally publish games that go to PC. So this might mean that, they're doing distribution and publishing for the PlayStation version, but he maintains the publishing rights to the game in general, meaning that he's probably going to self-publish the title over on PC. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it's always going to be. Consider Everybody's Going to the Rapture was going to be released by the Chinese Room. That game was essentially supposed to release on PC and PlayStation 4. And later along the line, Sony began publishing it. Later along the line, Sony bought the IP, and later along the line, the game never released on PC. So they could be working out a deal. I think Sony's probably trying to buy the IP from them. If there was ever an exception to not buy an IP and publish a title, it might be one of Hideo Kojima's. So maybe this is the exception, because they didn't even do that to Ted Price. And Ted Price, had been working with PlayStation just as long, if not possibly longer, than even Kojima has. If you consider Metal Gear comes out, 1998, 1999? 1998 Metal Gear Solid comes out, you would have to consider that, yeah, Ted Price technically has been working with them longer, and even he didn't get that. So, and they own those IPs, and he didn't even get that. So, who knows? It remains to be seen how this deal is working out. If you guys don't know, Ted Price, CEO, president of Insomniac Games, independent studio. They made the Ratchet and Clank series. They made the Resistance Fall of Man series. They went to Microsoft to do Sunset Overdrive. To my understanding, is because that Sony wanted to buy the IP. Sony didn't want to publish their game and spend money to fund and market a game they weren't going to own. But Microsoft was more willing to publish something that they didn't outright own the rights to. and Sony didn't agree to that. I think they just don't want to spend the marketing, the funding, and all of this for something they don't own. Maybe Hideo Kojima really is the exception of something like this, or maybe Sony's still working out a deal. For all we know, Kojima wants more leverage. He probably wants more clauses for creative freedom before he accepts to have another company owning the IP outright. In other news, because other things happened today besides Kojima joining Sony Computer Entertainment as independent thingy-majig going on. Smash Brothers fans, welcome to two new characters in the little fighting game. Corrin from Fire Emblem and Bayonetta from the Bayonetta series. So both of these characters, to my understanding, should be coming spring, so February for the DLC. It's going to be $5.99 for the 3DS. It's going to be $6.99 for the Wii U, this is for both. So it's going to be $5.99 on both. But if you want both of them, apparently you could pay $6.99 and get both of them. I don't actually know who plays the 3DS version. I was actually talking with a friend earlier to see if anyone's even playing that version. In my mind, I almost completely forgot that was a thing and that released before the Wii U one. So Corrin's character from Fire Emblem, kind of weird. It's very strange. So plays sort of like some of the other Fire Emblem characters, has a sword, and then completely after that is none of those comparisons are the same anymore. So it's like has a whole bunch of like dragon move things, and it's like at one point like this person turns into a dragon, and I'm saying this person because while watching this, I also find out that he could also be a she. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Like in the trailer, it's like, someone's talking to him and then he refers to him as his brother. And then suddenly, like halfway through the trailer, they reveal that, it's like this person could also be a girl. So yeah, I don't know what the fuck was up with that with the story of the game. Yeah, who knows? So Corrin coming to Smash Brothers, dragon-like thing. Has a little flying thing. Very looks like an interesting character. I'm not into the game or into the series as much as I would say I used to be. But interesting nonetheless for those who are going to be helping themselves to the DLC. Now, Bayonetta's character, on the other hand, really creative. That's probably one of the... I like the way they've been doing some of the characters in Smash Brothers that are from third parties, as they've utilized a lot of the attributes of the characters. The only one I didn't really care for too much was probably Snake and Brawl. I felt like Snake and Brawl used all these like weird different gadgets and stuff. Even though Snake does, I felt like he used more than normal. I guess I wanted him to be more so of a physical character doing a whole bunch of crazy CQC shit. Maybe it's too limited. Maybe it's not as much as I think. But her character uses her gun, her gun shoes, her gun blades, her gun heels to do attacks. And that's a cool like demon fist thing comes out. So all the attacks that you could kind of like think up that she has in Bayonetta 1 and 2. I don't know too much of 2 since I didn't play it, but the ones I see in 1 are very much in this game, which look really, really, really cool. So these are going to be coming in February 2016, $6.99 for both console versions, $5.99 for either the 3DS or the Wii U version. YS8 has been announced, coming straight to the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita. What is this, spring? Summer 2016. Straight for Japan, so we're not getting any of it. Well, I don't really know all that. We could probably see it. We've seen some YS titles over here, so I can't 100% say we won't see this one. So a lot of JRPGs coming out. We are just getting completely broke from JRPGs. Completely broke. Like oh man, the money, we're not having any. We're just gonna be pretty much poor because of this. So YS, just to had everybody get down a good history of likeliness of it coming to the West or not. YS7 came to the West. Now, it released September 2009 for the PlayStation Portable, YS7, and August 2010 came over to the West. So, Yeah, I mean this is likely to come over here. So I know many people might get scared because they hear it's coming out in Japan, and I know everybody is all over the, oh my god, we're not gonna get it because it's announced for Japan. The YS titles came over here, so like 6 apparently came over here as well in North America. So from what I'm looking up, I would say most of their titles have actually come here. What I'm looking up regarding the series is not necessarily showing many that didn't. So it's more than likely we'll probably end up getting the title. So yeah, fear not. If you're worried that you may not get it due to it not being localized, only a few haven't been localized. The last several actually have been. So 6 and 7 have been localized. YS5 actually hasn't, and it's only stayed in Japan. YS5 for PlayStation 2. But otherwise, what I'm looking up here is sort of showing that most of these actually came to us. Yeah, most of these came to us. So if they didn't come to us, most of these came to us in different versions. I know they re-released some of these games on the PC that came over here on Steam, and I know they also re-released some of those on PSN, and they might have made some either a remake or a sort of remastered up port they might have released as well in the PSP. So fear not, it's probably likely to come over here to the West. And what might be literally the biggest 100% likely possible delay, ReCore getting some information finally. This game is apparently supposed to release March 31st, 2016. And yeah, no word from any trade show or anything regarding where the fuck it actually is. Consider that Kenji Inafune working on this game. Consider he has other games that have been worked on longer that are releasing after this game. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about their ability to actually get this game out in time, and starting to make me wonder how great or how big this game is. Let me just get into it in terms of what the news is regarding this title. Now, Armature Studio co-founder, ex-Metroid Prime developer, Mark Pacini, I want to say his name is, he stated that this game was inspired by Metroid and Zelda. As to which Metroid, I don't know. I don't know if he's talking about Prime or the older series. I assume Prime only because it's the one he worked on. So, if I go off of Prime, yeah, it's only based on, what he stated. Now, it states that ReCore is a joint project between Armature Studio and Concept. Concept is apparently Kenji Inafune's studio, what he's calling his studio. A lot of the story comes from, what he states. What he states is very questionable. I don't know if I believe what he's stating. He states that regarding the collaboration between Microsoft, he states that he wasn't convinced it was a good idea, and he points out the disappointment of Xbox One's reveal and the focus of film and television and film when it was first announced. And I don't know if I believe him, because that just sounds like such a fucking stupid ass thing to say. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with development? Like, he's saying this and it's like, what does that have to do with the collaboration with him? I mean, at the end of the day, Microsoft Game Studios makes games. Microsoft has welcomed independents, clearly. I mean, not as much as Sony, but they've welcomed them in regardless. I don't know what that actually has to do with development. I don't know why he would say that, and it's starting to sound like, why are you making these comments where it's really starting to sound like he's saying this as if to make it sound like, hey, look, guys, I was thinking it wasn't a good idea to collaborate with them, but they've changed their ways, and I've been one of those that doubted them, but they're legit. Like, it seems like he's trying to go on that type of bullshit, and I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that because I don't know what the reveal or this focus on film television has to do with development. At the end of the day, it's a system. It's the fastest selling Microsoft console, period. And that's it. It's I mean, I don't know what he would really, why that would make him not want to work with them, as if that has anything to do with the, if you're a developer, you work on a platform because it gives you the tools that allows you to make your game, and it gives you a wider audience for your game to be created. What the fuck that has to do with how they revealed it or how they marketed it in the beginning? I don't know what any of that has to do with anything. At the end of the day, there's over, what was it, like 13 or 14 million people who own it. I mean, it's a lot of people. 13, 14 million is a lot of people who own a platform. So, you know, I don't know if I want to believe what he's saying. It sounds like he's trying his best to try to make it sound like he didn't like it at some point, and those are great reasons not to like it. They're horrible reasons. They don't make sense. And he goes on to state, however, Microsoft apparently wanted a game for gamers, and things like Smart Glass and Kinect were never forced on the ReCore team. I could think of one of two ways that I perceive what's being stated. I believe he might be saying this about Smart Glass and Kinect not being forced on the ReCore team. Maybe it's because ReCore is a Smart Glass and Kinect type game, and maybe he's trying to make it sound like, oh man, it's really that type of game because it really is, and you know, nobody forced it on us. Maybe that's really what this is. Or maybe he states this and it has nothing to do with Smart Glass, it has nothing to do with Kinect. I mean, that really could simply be it. So he says it feels like for us, the runaway's been kind of clear. We could just concentrate on making a really good game and putting features that make sense for this game. And I'm starting to feel like, okay, maybe he is talking about Kinect for real. If this game, had Kinect, and the way I saw the whole, spear stuff going on with this game and this little dog robot thingy majigger, like taking characteristics of the things that they killed, it sounds like it could, be a really great Kinect game regardless. I don't believe this game is going to meet its March 2016 sort of deadline. Though that's not its release date, that is the deadline for what Q1 2016 means. I'm not convinced it's going to meet it, and I'm actually worried. Because if it does meet that deadline, I'm starting to question the quality of the game because we've yet to even see it. And I feel like maybe we should have been seeing it kind of like a while ago. And it's like, okay, let's say Microsoft's at CES, or DICE, and they show this game off. Okay, they're going to show it off a month before it releases. I am a little worried. If Microsoft really is doing that, I'm very worried about this game's development. If it does release before that date and I was wrong, hey, that happens. But if it does release prior to that date, something's telling me it's not what everybody might be thinking it is. And maybe they should lower their expectations. It really might be a different game than what people might be thinking. Or I could be wrong. Could be a sleeper hit. In some very strange, but then again, not so surprising compared to some of the stuff we saw happen, GTA 5's next free expansion is announced. Sounds pretty good. So this expansion is going to have update to something called executives and other criminals. Lets players become VIP, then establish their own crime ring. Ooh, that sounds interesting. I don't really play GTA 5's online mode. I mean, I played the hell out of the single player mode. I don't really partake deeply in online mode. I don't know how interesting any of this really is. Also adds new gameplay modes, luxury theme items. You could get customizable apartments, new homes in Vinewood Hills, a super yacht vehicle. So all this sounds pretty damn good. So this sounds pretty fun to the people who are going to be playing on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and PC, but not Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Apparently, this update is skipping the older platforms. This is actually similar to the entire single player of, the last Call of Duty Black Ops 3, essentially skipping all of that platform, which is crazy. But I can understand it. It makes sense. They want to, focus that team. This game is already being made on several platforms. You have to consider multiplayer mode is being made on 5 platforms, which is hard enough as it is. But now you're asking them to, jump and put it on 3 platforms, 2 other platforms, excuse me. That might be enough. I know the team that makes the single player game is not actually the same part of the members that actually makes the multiplayer stuff. So it might have been too much for that team to do 5 of versions of it single player. And their multiplayer aspect side of that team was able to. So who knows? Interesting, because it's like the install base, I believe, for the older platforms is actually larger for this game and not the new ones. I may be wrong, but I really believe, to my understanding, it hit 35 million before it ever touched the next gen platforms, meaning that if it's at 54, it technically means that more people don't even own the version that the update's coming out for, which is it's unfortunate, but it's what it is. Ubisoft showing more things out for The Division, which I'm happy about. The new trailer that they're showing here It's talking about the player stories. I guess what people are talking about through the alpha, which is sort of interesting. I mean, they show some flamethrower shit going down over there. It's like the only big gameplay stuff they actually show. But they talk a little bit about going into the zone prior to the dead zone, in terms of exploring the open world, but they don't necessarily go too deep into it. You get some images of the map. One of the more interesting things they show on the map is actually like it shows something for like side quest or side mission, which makes me wonder what's the main mission, which is kind of weird. Now, they talk about that solo player is fun to play. They talk about that, you know, clearly playing with friends is better, is what they state. But they're not really going deep into what the mission aspects are. And I think, you know, clearly Ubisoft is over time going to go into that, because I want to know what the missions are. I want to know, is it more survivor based? Because I know there's a part on somewhere when they originally showed this game about your character gathering water or picking up water somewhere. So I want to know how big is that, you know, survival thing to the actual game. And yeah, I get that you might have missions, but it's like, give me something, you know, I want some substance. Let me survive this. If you give me some health, you give me some life, you give me something that makes me have to continue to do something to survive the game. And, you know, I think I'd like it way more. But right now, I'm a bit standoffish on it, because it's like, it's interesting to explore, but, you know, I want a reason to explore. What's going on? You know, if I'm looting stuff other than weapons and stuff to put on my physical body, you know, that's more interesting. I want to know what is the other stuff I'm going to be getting and the other stuff I'm going to be doing in this game, other than walking around and shooting people. Every mission in this game cannot be, there's a place, we need to kill a bunch of people to get them out of the place, and let's continue, you know, after the fact. I hope the game is not that shallow. I don't really know. But, you know, gotta be pre-ordering it so I can get in the alpha beta. And if, let's say I get in the beta and I pre-order it, and let's say it sucks, let's say it's not that good, you know, I could just cancel my pre-order and it's, you know, no love lost. So I don't really recommend people even do that, to be honest with you, but it's like, sometimes in situations like this, like, what they're saying is not enough for you to fully 100% get the concept, and, you know, maybe actually physically playing the game and getting the concept might be enough for most people to see if it's a yay or a nay. Last story I'd like to say, or last news tidbit I'd like to put out, creative director, thought it was a director, but it turns out it's a creative director behind the Mafia 3, goes on IGN, shows, you know, 12 minutes of gameplay from Mafia 3. I'll leave a link below so you guys can see the full entire thing. I'll just give my rundown in terms of what they were showing, what they were talking about. Yeah, they sort of show some gameplay of, you know, him walking around the city. One of the things I'd like to make note about is just how populated and dense the actual city looks like. So I like how dense it looks. Definitely you could tell, you know, lots of RAM and lots of, you know, really current generation horsepower is behind the graphical fidelity of this game in terms of detail, in terms of how dynamic it looks. Especially the water effects, the lighting, the tessellation and textures on the ground looks really, really amazing. Other than that, I'm worried slightly about this game. You know, the director goes on to talk about, you know, how the city, and it's more about the narrative of the character, and they're going really, really deep into the story like people really loved in Mafia 2. My only worry is that, you know, this isn't even, you know, the same developer that did Mafia 2. But, you know, that's weird because, you know, same developer that did Mafia 2 is even the one that did the first one. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, you know, this is, maybe it's better than what I think it is. I'm worried because I feel like the only thing I've seen that I haven't liked at this game, honestly, is the driving mechanic. The driving mechanic looks like exaggerative. Like, you know, you're turning and just doing this wild, ridiculous, like weird drift thing. And it just looks, it looks very exaggerative. I have to see more of it. I guess I was more worried the first time I seen it. Now, so I see promise. I see that, you know, it could do interesting things. I just want to know how they're going to step up the level in terms of creating an open world, you know, narrative with this character. It's supposed to be set after Vietnam. This guy's a Vietnam vet. You know, I'm not really getting too much of the mafia type understanding. I know he's going to get some mobsters, but it's like I would always assume that the person who is in Mafia is, you know, part of the mafia, but he seems to like he's going against them. So which is kind of strange, but I definitely like the physics-based shooting in terms of people, how they fall. I somewhat like some of the physics-based driving stuff, with the exception of that weird drift thing that you're seeing. I don't know why it's so exaggerative for. I personally could do without it. I don't know. It might be one of those feel type of things. Maybe I have to feel it. Maybe I'm just sort of saying this in reality. I probably would really like it if I felt it. Like some of the shooting mechanic stuff that I see, but I don't know with this level, of fidelity, that people merely just want a better looking game where you're doing the same thing of, kill quest, fetch quest, kidnap someone. I don't know if that fits. I mean, we got that PS2 generation with GTA absolutely revolutionizing that. We got that last generation where they absolutely did that shit to death. And, do we necessarily need that this generation? This is, technically speaking, in terms of games, sort of like GTA. This is the first next generation only, first current generation only title that is of GTA style or stature. The rest of the titles that released this generation were not, where, Watch Dogs was cross-generational. So the rest of the games that are released, to my understanding, have not been like, urban setting GTA style. So this is our first take at that, with the exception of something, the only example could be given right now, to my understanding, is Watch Dogs, in terms of how close that would be in terms of similarities. But other than that, this is the first that's pushing this type of visual fidelity. Very interesting, looks very promising. I'll keep a lookout on it. I like what I see graphically, but, at the end of the day, that's going to wear off. I want to know what the game's really about. But I really like the art direction. I like that it has, a promising narrative. We'll just have to see how far that goes. So that's going to wrap it up for us today. Lots of crazy news. Podcast later today, we're going to talk about Craig, are going to talk about our favorite games this year thus far. Though I would like to tell you guys my favorite games this year. We're only saving this for the news stuff. We're not going to go deep into anything like that. Likely not going to have a newscast for the rest of the year. This could probably be my last newscast of the year. You guys will probably see my newscast. Let me check the calendar over here. Possibly not on Christmas Day, because, I'm going to be tracking the news, but not necessarily writing anything or reading anything or anything like that, or I guess recording anything. So my calendar is telling me the next Foxhole cast could even be past New Year's Day. New Year's Eve. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I am going to make sure the next cast you'll hear will be on the very 1st of 2016. It's going to be a megalithic one, because I'm saving everything from the week of Christmas to the week of New Year's. I'm saving everything, writing everything down, recording everything, reading the news, giving fucks, and we'll just have an extra long cast on January 1st. It's been a good year. Thanks for everybody for supporting this channel. This channel has now officially got over 4,000 views since we've launched like 4 months ago. So I'm happy to hear that, we're doing okay. 4 months in, 4 months in to get 4,000 views, hundreds of videos up now. Yeah, thanks a lot, and like always, yeah, happy 2015. That's game.